A CRM shouldn't set your teams back. It should revolutionize the way they work.
Well, you guys, got another video here for you on some of the best Microsoft Office alternatives of 2024. Now, we all know that Microsoft Office or Office 365 is quite expensive, and a lot of people opt for free versions or cheaper alternatives, and we're going to look at those in this video. So Microsoft Office is the industry standard. A lot of businesses use it, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to use it. There is other options available which you can use, which also accept the Microsoft Office file formats, and then we're going to go through those in this video. So first up is OpenOffice. OpenOffice has gained popularity among various professionals and organizations for its versatility and cost effectiveness. Now, it's got quite a few downloads for this particular type of software. It does work with Linux, OS X, and many other platforms as well. So what can it offer you as a user? Well, if you are using, say, Office and you want to move away from Microsoft's platform, then you can use something like OpenOffice. It's free to download and use. It also allows professionals to open up and work on different file types which they receive from clients. So this not only helps to maintain a professional image, but also eliminates the need to request alternative file formats from that client, which means if they send you a file and you need to open it and it's been sent from a Office Word file, you'll be able to open it up in OpenOffice 4. You can see it supports all the same features that Microsoft Office does: text documents, spreadsheets, presentation, drawing, database, and also formula. So you've got all of these options available for you. This is your Word sort of document type platform where you can do typing, letters and stuff like that, and you'll be able to open and edit all these .dbx files right inside this software which has been sent from a Office suite from Microsoft. So it does work with this platform. It's got a familiar user interface just like Microsoft Office, but there is a couple of cons and we'll go through some of those. The cons are OpenOffice does not include any native cloud storage features. Also, it doesn't support any sort of real-time collaboration with other users. It's not supported on this particular platform. So OpenOffice is noticeably lack of its cloud support makes the collaboration nearly impossible, but it has all of the essential features needed to work with Microsoft Office formats, and that's one of its plus sides. So if the cloud storage features and a real-time collaboration is not a deal breaker for you, then you can choose OpenOffice as an alternative to Microsoft Office Suite, which is free to use and it looks exactly like Microsoft Office. Let's talk about LibreOffice. This is a very popular, common type of Office suite that a lot of people always go to. It's free and it's open source. Now, LibreOffice is probably one of the go-to Office suites to replace Microsoft Office. It is a full suite and it offers all of the features that Microsoft Office does. It also is compatible with all Microsoft Office file formats. It's got an easy user interface and you can get very familiar with this particular type of software if you're coming from Microsoft Office. It gets frequent updates, so you don't have to worry about updates. Again, some of the cons of this is extra templates have to be downloaded and installed manually, and there is no cloud support, and local software and storage only is available with this particular type of software. So if that's a deal breaker to you, then you'll need to find another alternative. But other than that, it's a really good go-to if you want to stay away from Microsoft altogether and use something that is not attached to Microsoft.
Within this video, we're going to be going over this statement and analyzing what it means for Destiny 2 and the gaming industry moving forward. And so, let's get started. So, the article is called The New Path for Bungie, with Pete Parsons saying, "This morning, I'm sharing with all of you some of the most difficult changes we've ever had to make as a studio. Due to the rising cost of development and industry shifts, as well as enduring economic conditions, it has become clear that we need to make substantial changes to our cost structure and focus development efforts entirely on Destiny and Marathon. That means beginning today, 220 of our roles will be eliminated, representing roughly 17% of the studio's workforce." So right off the bat, yeah, this is a big deal. I mean, nearly 20% of Bungie Studio is now eliminated starting today. Like, that is a huge chunk of the workforce. And he talks a little bit about some of the reasons behind that, a rising cost, economic conditions. We're going to discuss that more after reading the full statement, so let's continue. "These actions will affect every level of the company, including most of our executive and senior leader roles. Today is a difficult and painful day, especially for our departing colleagues, all of which have made important and valuable contributions to Bungie. Our goal is to support them with the utmost care and respect. For everyone affected by this job reduction, we will be offering a generous exit package, including severance, bonus, and health coverage. I realize all of this is hard news, especially following the success we have seen with the final shape. But as we've navigated the broader economic realities over the last year and after exhausting all other mitigation options, this has become a necessary decision to refocus our studio and our business with more realistic goals and viable financials." So this statement is super interesting because he brings up the final shape doing well, and it did. I mean, if you look at the player numbers on Steam, when the final shape came out, it was some of the highest we've ever seen, the highest in years. There's no doubt the final shape was a success. Highly rated as well. A lot of positive sentiment from the community. The final shape slapped. And so having these layoffs directly after that, I mean, we're not even in episode 2, for goodness sakes. It's like final shape happened, it was a banger, and now we're laying off people. That is pretty surprising. Like, you'd think with the success of an expansion, things would be better. Now, again, the economy is mentioned again, and there's potentially two tactics for this. One tactic is just blaming things on these broader, uncontrollable factors. The economy is getting worse. The other thing is that the economy is literally getting worse. I mean, everyone watching probably has realized that. Go buy groceries these days. Go fill up your car with gas. Go try to get a house. Good luck, you know? And so with people having less disposable income, they're spending less in the Eververse store and less on video games overall. So undoubtedly this is a factor, but you could be over-exaggerating this factor because it makes it seem like it was all just not your fault, right? Now, continuing from there, he says, we are committing to two major changes today that we believe will support our focus, leverage Sony's strengths, and create new opportunities for Bungie talent. First, we are deepening our integration with Sony Interactive Entertainment, working to integrate 155 of our roles, roughly 12%, into SEI, so Sony, over the next few quarters. Sony has worked tirelessly with us to identify roles for as many of our people as possible, enabling us together to save a great deal of talent that would otherwise have been affected by the reduction in force. So that's interesting. I think they're saying they're still laying off 220 people, and then of the existing people, they're looking to integrate 155 into Sony. I don't think they're saying 155 of the 220, but it's kind of, I guess it could be worded a bit better, or at least I'm not fully 100% sure on this wording. I think overall they're saying like the layoffs would have had to be worse if we couldn't have integrated people into Sony, right? Like some people went to Sony instead of being just straight up laid off, which that's like, that's not good, certainly saying that. I mean, I guess it was good Sony was there to integrate these people, but they continue, again, talking about Sony PlayStation. They say, second, we are working with PlayStation Studios leadership to spin one of our incubation products, an action game set in a brand new science fantasy universe, to form a new studio within PlayStation Studios to continue its promising development. Wow, okay, so Bungie has been working on many products in the background, right? Some of this stuff I've heard via rumors, some of this stuff, off the record conversations, but Bungie has had a lot of projects and a lot of them have gone nowhere, right? I mean, one of the things Matter, which is public, they publicly announced this game, Matter, this new like RPG game. And it just disappeared. I think they announced that it was never happening, like it was canceled or something like that. So undoubtedly they spend a lot of money on these projects that go nowhere, that they don't actually bring to fruition. One project they did bring to fruition, of course, is Marathon, still under development. That looks like it's not getting canceled, it's still going forward. But this is actually interesting that instead of maybe canceling one of these projects, not having enough resources, they're actually like giving this new IP, this project to Sony, and Sony is kind of taking over developing this project. But let's continue on with the statement. This will be a time of tremendous change for our studio. Let's unpack how we ended up in this position. It's important to understand how we got here. Okay, here we go. For over 5 years, it has been our goal to ship games in 3 enduring global franchises. To realize that ambition, we set up several incubation projects, each seeded with senior development leaders from our existing teams. We eventually realized that this model stretched our talent too thin too quickly. It also forced our studio support structures to scale to a larger level than we could realistically support, given our 2 primary products in development, Destiny and Marathon. So he's kind of saying what I just said, right? Like, have a lot of projects in incubation and a lot of them go nowhere. Now, why is it your goal to have 3 enduring franchises? Like, what a random number. Why not 2? Why not 1? Like, we'll talk about that later.
So many games dying. Bungie's dying. Game platforms. Destiny 3 cancel.
Brad here features actual intelligence. He's hardware and software compatible, and he shares his bets on Sportsbet's new feed, so you can copy real bets from real people with Sportsbet.
What's gambling really costing you?
What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Kakis, and today we have some absolutely massive news about the future of the Destiny franchise. What's happening with Destiny 2 leading into 2025, Destiny 3, Destiny spin-offs, and more. We're covering all of that stuff, so let's get started. Now, all of this information is coming on the heels of the just massive situation going on within Bungie right now. So, a few days ago, Bungie announced that layoffs were taking place at the company. I did a video covering that official announcement. You can check it out. It's linked right up above. But since that point, we have just had a massive slew of information come forth because, the people getting laid off, journalists are reaching out to them, asking them for comment. They're no longer at the company, so they're releasing some information. So we just have a ton of stuff kind of coming out about not only what was happening at Bungie that led to these layoffs, but also what the plan is moving forward for the Destiny franchise. And the first thing we're going to talk about that will absolutely impact the Destiny franchise is the status of Destiny 3. I think most Destiny players out there eventually do want a Destiny 3, a fresh start, and maybe a new engine. All of that stuff would be fantastic. But it was originally reported that Destiny 3, called Project Payback internally, was cancelled as part of this restructuring. And a lot of players were really disappointed by this news. However, the reason you need to take a massive grain of salt with everything that's coming out right now, and there's just so much bombarding you from everywhere, is that it was later reported by Jason Schreier, who's an absolute juggernaut in the games journalism industry. Like, this guy has reported on some massive stories internally within Bungie before and always been right. So he actually reported that Project Payback was a spin-off of Destiny. Like, it was a completely different game set in the Destiny universe, and it wasn't actually Destiny 3. Now, Project Payback did still get canceled, but they actually never even started production on Destiny 3. Now, is that good news? Is that bad news? It's up to you, but let's actually go over Jason Schreier's full article on the situation that just came out. So it's called Sony's Bungie Faces Reckoning After Mass Layoff. So, this week, Sony Group's Bungie shrunk from 1,300 employees to roughly 850. Deep cuts that are likely to change the nature of the long-running
Don't you know that there's a better way to find music?
Upbeat, their subscription is free.
It's completely free. Like free.
Upbeat is a free
You're going to need to upgrade your internet connection and maybe get a bigger monitor because multi-streaming from your own PC just got way easier thanks to the awesome people over at Atom. Atom Multistream is a new OBS plugin that takes multi-streaming to the next level and makes multi-streaming to different platforms, even in different qualities with different audio tracks, super accessible, and it enhances the vertical plugin to manage your vertical secondary streams too. This is wild. This is a huge upgrade on the previous multi-RTMP outputs plugin for OBS and works with Twitch Enhanced and VOD tracks too. This video is brought to you by the Elgato Stream Deck, the ultimate in stream control and management. The new XLR dock and USB hub expansion modules for the Stream Deck Plus helps you achieve your final form of ultimate power without taking up any additional space. Check them out at the link below. Download the installer and run it. If you use just a normal installed version of OBS, just click through it like normal, or choose your directory that you want it to go to if you use a portable build like I do here. Then Atom Multistream is available under Docks. Now, for this kind of setup, I highly recommend having Twitch be the primary output for your profile here. This way you can use the VOD track option if you wish, or you could just use backing track and stay safe on all platforms like a smart streamer, backingtrack.gg. And you can enable enhanced broadcasting for your Twitch stream without any hassle. So for this configuration, I have a 4K canvas. Twitch is my primary stream in OBS itself, which for you would probably mean that you need to scale it to 1080p currently, but I'm testing the cool stuff and I get to stream 4K to Twitch, twitch.tv/eposfox, by the way, and then set up your normal Twitch output as you normally would. Then in Atom Multistream, click the settings cog and add a new output for your main horizontal OBS canvas, and a vertical one if you want to use that as well. You can add YouTube, Trovo, TikTok if you actually have a stream key, and so on. By default, these secondary streams use the same encoder profile that your primary OBS stream is using. For a standard 720p or 1080p Twitch streamer, that's fine. But if you want to stream higher quality to YouTube, you'll want to set this up manually. Here you can choose HEVC or AV1 for YouTube and increase the bitrate. Remember, HEVC and AV1 are higher efficiency codecs that provide much higher quality for your bitrate and should virtually always be used for YouTube these days. You can also choose a different audio track or different audio bitrate here as well. Just paste in your stream key and you're good to go. If you use Twitch Enhanced Broadcasting, this works here too. You want Twitch to be your profile stream output, not added through this plugin. Stream once with Enhanced after having installed the plugin, and then when you choose your encoder for your secondary outputs, you'll see a list of encoder resolutions that Enhanced is sending to Twitch. You can then pick one of these to forward to another platform without wasting an additional encode session. This is huge, as I can pick the highest quality to forward to YouTube, a 720p or so quality copy to forward to Facebook or Twitter if I was a weirdo that pays for Twitter to be able to stream there, and to not have to worry about added encoder sessions or processing load. And again, if you install Atom's vertical plugin and set up your vertical canvas, you can choose outputs for that here as well. For audio, remember that OBS gives you 6 audio tracks to play with. By clicking the 3 dots on an audio source in the mixer and going to Advanced Audio Properties, you can manually assign any individual source to a given track or exclude it. So you can route any specific audio source you want to a given track and choose that track for any multi-stream output. You can get as complicated or as simple with this setup as you see fit. Personally, I just send the same audio to all stream platforms, but you could play with it. You could stream so many different outputs at the same time with this plugin, but there are some important considerations with performance to keep in mind here. Encoding video on your GPU is a really powerful tool that makes crazy streaming setups like this possible, but the resources for it are not infinite. As of January of this year, NVIDIA users can have up to 8 individual encode sessions going at the same time. There's a driver limitation preventing any more. And while AMD and Intel don't exactly have the same kind of driver limitation, you'll see similar limitations in terms of raw performance. But depending on your settings, you might not be able to get away with that many. GTX 10 series and RTX 40 series NVIDIA cards, or at least the higher tier 40 series, it's complicated, have dual encoder chips, meaning they have a lot more headroom for multiple encodes at the same time and will thrive in this kind of workflow. But either way, if you plan on streaming to every site ever, I do strongly recommend a dual PC setup at this point. It will start to hinder your game performance and whatever else you're doing. If you're using Twitch Enhanced Broadcasting, you're already sending 3 to 5 encodes to Twitch alone, which eats up a lot of power and headroom, though you could limit the number of sessions it uses up in your stream settings here. You can also, again, save on sessions and overhead by using some of these existing Twitch enhanced streams to feed to other platforms by choosing the main encoder for that output in the plugin, and then choosing from the encoder selection list here, as I explained before. If you're having significant performance issues, consider changing the output scaling algorithm for each of your encoder settings that you are scaling down resolutions for to bilinear. This won't be as clear of a feed as bicubic or something like that, but it will perform a lot better. Otherwise, you may need to simplify your stream layout a bit or lower your canvas resolution, such as using a 1440p canvas instead of full 4K, for example, or do other things to reduce your load. Once you're ready to stream, you need to start your main stream within OBS first, and then you can fire off your secondary feeds in the ATEM multi-stream dock once that stream is started. Keep an eye out for the magic smoke from your PC or the suits from your ISP knocking on your door. One of the more obnoxious hurdles with multi-streaming like this is managing your scene, especially if you're using both a horizontal and a vertical canvas. The Elgato Stream Deck, today's sponsor, helps make that easy. Each key can be a unique screen-identified button to switch scenes, activate sources, mute your mic, and so on. And with pages, folders, and profiles, you can have nearly unlimited options. For managing my vertical canvas alongside my horizontal canvas, I use multi-actions, actions that execute multiple things at the same time from a single button press, alongside the assigned scenes function in vertical. Some of my vertical scenes automatically switch based on my normal canvas scene, but often I need to show things differently, and having a multi-action that can switch both canvases at once is super handy. I also have one that turns on all my lights for my stream too. Again, thanks to Elgato for sponsoring this video. Grab yourself a Stream Deck at the link below. To manage chat, my two recommended options are Caster Labs or the chat that comes with StreamerBot. Both can give you good multi-stream chat, though access to, some of the more esoteric stream platforms chats will be limited. The only real limitations left for multi-streaming in general are TikTok being absurd and not giving you actual stream keys anymore to use, and having to pay the muskrat for premium in order to be able to stream on Twitter. Which is funny, since all that stream serves for is a reminder to go watch your Twitch or YouTube stream anyway. Regardless, things are moving quite along. You'll just need some really fast upload speed to do all of this. Your internet needs to be able to handle all of this at once. And a lot of screen space for the ridiculous amount of OBS docks that we're all setting up these days. It certainly becomes a lot to handle, but I am very excited for the future, especially since you can now stream both vertical and horizontal streams to YouTube at the same time, as I covered in this video here. And I'm thinking pretty soon we might see a future where you can stream both within one feed to Twitch, as I teased in this video over here. Remember to be kind, rewind.
Switch to Chrome to securely store your passwords, so you can sign in with just a click.
So, BIOS settings. Perhaps you've been afraid of BIOS. You know, it's a little bit of a scary thing to go in there, change something. What if you brick something up? Will this brick up your PC? Well, there are 6 settings that you need to know how to change in BIOS, especially if you're a creator. So I'm going to share these 6 tips with you, and I'm going to show you actually how to do it and how to, you know, configure them as well. My favorite is tip number 5, but let's show you them all. Licensing Windows is cheap and easy with whokeys.com, and if you use the code TN20, you get an extra disc. Code TN20 for the to restart the PC below. You've got your PC, the PC is running. One of the first things you need to know is how to get into the BIOS, and that's quite simple. All you have to do is go into the restart the PC, and once you have restarted, just start hitting the delete button and you should be getting into. And that works on Intel, AMD, any of the platforms really. That's like the default. Voila, here we are. Now, I am using a Gigabyte board. This is Z690 Aero D. This is one of the most confusing motherboards and BIOSes that you can get. Gigabyte, we need to sort them out. I think that one of the newer motherboards, they have a little bit of a better kind of a design in there. Asus motherboards are very easy to understand. But the same is with Intel and AMD motherboards. Whether you're running AMD or Intel, both of them work similar, and most of the tips actually work on both of the platforms as well. So it doesn't matter whether you're using Intel or AMD. Tip number 1 is iGPU. And you might have heard that the iGPU gives you lots of performance as a creator. Now you're going onto your task manager on Windows and you don't see Intel UHD 770 or Intel UHD something in there. It's just not there. How do you find the iGPU settings? Now, first what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to load optimize defaults, which means just reset every piece of setting on the BIOS. So whether you're getting this or I'm getting this, it would look the same to you. One of the first things you notice is the fans are absolutely kicking off. It's absolutely insane. How do you find the iGPU setting then? Firstly, most likely the BIOS has set the iGPU to be off by default. It's because most of the people use these PCs for gaming, and for gaming the iGPU is not going to be really giving you anything, and you want to use your dedicated graphics. But for creators, that's a whole nother story, and we need that iGPU. But in gaming, you know, there might sometimes be an issue because you start to play on iGPU instead of dedicated GPU and so on. But the interesting thing is even creator boards like this Aero D will have the iGPU set off by default. How is this a creator motherboard? I don't know. And that's not just Gigabyte, that's all the other manufacturers as well. I'm looking at you, Asus, with the Pro ad. Now, firstly, we're gonna go to settings. There we go. And then I believe it's I/O ports, and then we have internal graphics. Here we just have to make sure that this is enabled. It was actually enabled for me. So maybe Gigabyte has updated the BIOS and actually has this enabled, but make sure that is enabled as a creator. Then your iGPU will actually show up in Windows. Tip number 2 is XMP settings and lowering the RAM speed. Now, you might have got a really fast RAM kit, like something Corsair, Dominator, Titanium, 8,000 megatransfers per second or something like that, and you realize it's not actually running at 8,000 megahertz. It's just too much. So what do we actually do? So firstly, we're gonna go to the tweaker here, and as you can see, we have something called Extreme Memory Profile. Whichever RAM you're running, most likely it will have an XMP or DCOP or Expo profile, whether you're on AMD. XMP for Windows, DCOP or Expo for AMD platforms. Now, what we're going to do is actually enable it. We're just going to put XMP 1, and you can see that's 5,200 megatransfers per second. And that's what we have from the actual manufacturer, you know, coming from the RAM sticks. And we want that. But sometimes the RAM speed is too much and you're getting crashes. So how do you lower the RAM speed? There's something called the system memory multiplier. And on Asus, you'll see like DDR5 speed or something like that. This is the most confusing way to get it. But MSI, ASRock, they're all exactly the same. So now you can see that we can scroll down and you can see our 5,200 megatransfers is enabled there. We could set it to 5,000, for example, if it's too fast. If it feels like you're getting crashes, I'd recommend going down by 200 megahertz. If you're, let's say, 68,000 megahertz and you realize, poof, I'm getting crashes, try 66 and 64 if you're still getting crashes and so on, until you find actually a good frequency that the IMC can run. It's very important you know how to change these settings. Perhaps later on in your PC's lifetime, when your PC and IMC is not the latest condition or the newest condition, you might actually lose some of their RAM capabilities. You might have to lower the RAM speed. So going lower is very important without actually losing all of the XMP settings. You could take the XMP off, but lowering the RAM is actually still going to give you more performance, but you just lower the RAM speed there. Now, for 5200 megatransfers per second, for me, that's absolutely fine, and I'm going to leave it at that. Now, tip number 3 is the fan profile. You need to know how to change the fan speed in BIOS. And why I recommend doing it in BIOS, not on Windows, is because even if the software doesn't launch or crashes in Windows, BIOS is like a subsystem that still will run the fan speeds at the right speeds. So how do you find the fan, settings in here? The easiest way I can see here is Smart Fan 6, which is F6, as you can see when we can go there. My fans are going very loud, I'm not sure if you can hear them, but you might find them somewhere else as well. Just going through the tabs, you'll find something like that. Different manufacturers might call their fan settings something different, like a Q fan, but we're gonna go to F6, and voila, we have the fan settings. Here's a few things that you can see what you can do and so on, but I have a more detailed video about this where I'm going much more in depth how you can get a better performance and quieter performance and how to actually tune them, and I'll go step by step how to tune this. So I'm not gonna make this video too long in this part of this, but for tip 3, it's important that you know that you can and how to change the fan settings and fan speed in BIOS. That's much more peaceful. Fans are finally quieter. A bonus little tip over here is saving BIOS settings. Now, some people just go out and don't save the settings, but knowing an F10 key, this will basically just save configuration and exit. So we're just gonna do that now. Once you press enter, it's gonna save the BIOS settings, restart the PC, and you're going to start to go into Windows again. Unless you want to go back to BIOS, hit that delete button. Now we're back in the BIOS, and as you can see, there is an easy menu here as well. And why I recommend doing it in BIOS, not on Windows, is because even if the software doesn't launch, or there is Smart Fan, going through the tabs, you'll find some, and voila, we have the fan settings. Here's a few things that you can see what you can do and so on, but I have a more detailed video about this where I'm going much more in depth how you can get a better performance and quieter performance and how to actually tune them, and I'll go step by step how to tune this. So I'm not gonna make this video too long in this part of this, but for tip 3, it's important that you know that you can and how to Smart Fan 6, which is F6, as you can see when we can go there. My fans are going very loud, I'm not sure if you can hear them, but you might find them somewhere else as well. Just going through the tabs, you'll find something like that. Different manufacturers might call their fan settings something different, like a Q fan, but we're gonna go to F6, and voila, we have the fan settings. Here's a few things that you can see what you can do and so on, but I have a more detailed video about this where I'm going much more in depth how you can get a better performance and quieter performance and how to actually tune them, and I'll go step by step how to tune this. So I'm not gonna make this video too long in this part of this, but for tip 3, it's important.
You need the simplest version of the idea in order for it to grow naturally in your subject's mind. It's a very subtle art. What you have to do is start at the absolute basics. So what is this idea that you need to learn?
So BIOS settings. Perhaps you've been able to change the fan speed in BIOS. And And why I recommend doing it in BIOS, not on Windows, is because even if the software doesn't launch or crashes in Windows, BIOS is like a subsystem that still will run the fan speeds at the right speeds. So how do you find the fan, settings in here? The easiest way I can see here is Smart Fan 6, which is F6, as you can see when we can go there. My fans are going very loud, I'm not sure if you can hear them, but you might find them somewhere else as well. Just going through the tabs, you'll find something like that. Different manufacturers might call their fan settings something different, like a Q fan, but we're gonna go to F6, and voila, we have the fan settings. Here's a few things that you can see what you can do and so on, but I have a more detailed video about this where I'm going much more in depth how you can get a better performance and quieter performance and how to actually tune them, and I'll go step by step how to tune this. So I'm not gonna make this video too long in this part of this, but for tip 3, it's important that you know that you can and how to change the fan settings and fan speed in BIOS. That's much more peaceful. Fans are finally quieter. A bonus little tip over here is saving BIOS settings. Now, some people just go out and don't save the settings, but knowing an F10 key, this will basically just save configuration and exit. So we're just gonna do that now. Once you press enter, it's gonna save the BIOS settings, restart the PC, and you're going to start to go into Windows again. Unless you want to go back to BIOS, hit that delete button. Now we're back in the BIOS, and as you can see, there is an easy menu here as well, what you can see. And this is where you can actually enable the XMP, and some of the main settings that you need on BIOS are just available in here. As you can see, XMP or Expo, we can see in there. And if you go to advanced menu, that is F2. So if you flick between F2, you can go to the more advanced settings and easy mode. Now, tip number 4 is the MCE or power limit on Intel platform. Now, you might be running Intel's 13th gen, 12th gen, any of the CPUs, and your motherboard most likely is going to run Intel CPU out of its factory specs. Now, is that bad? Not necessarily. What this will give you is it's gonna extract all the juice from the CPU as possible. So when you're doing something like a multi-core rendering, multi-core or multi-threaded workload that's very heavy, the motherboard Z790, Z690, and some of the B660, B760 motherboards are pushing the CPU further than it's actually allowed. So Intel says up to 253 watts, for example, maximum power draw, but the motherboard is pushing it past 300 watts. Now, you could leave it on, but that will give you a little bit of more performance at much higher power consumption and much louder PC. Now, is it worth it? Well, I'm going to leave it up to you. But knowing how to change these settings is very important, and I'll show you how to do that. So when we're in this Gigabyte crazy complicated BIOS, we're going to have to go to F2. One of the first things what you can see is enhanced multi-core performance. And what we have to do here is disable it, because that is basically the multi-core enhancements and PL1 and PL2 limits. That's what this tries to push further. Now, on ASUS motherboards, it's much easier because what you can see there is enforce all limits, which just means that all of the limits that Intel sets, we're going to force these and don't let motherboards do anything else there. In here, what we also see in Gigabyte BIOS is turbo power limits, which is basically another one of those things that it should explain. It should be a little bit better kind of understand what this means. And as you can see, this is auto Intel POR, which means basically Intel's defaults or enabled. So if we're going to put enabled, it's just going to try to push it a bit further, but we're going to have to set Intel POR, and then let's exit this. And now we shouldn't have any extra power being pulled from the motherboard and the CPU. Well, really only the CPU. We shouldn't have any more power draw from the CPU as Intel lets us do. So here's how we can check that. We go back to the Windows. What you want to do is open something like Hardware Info 64 or XTU from Intel. Both of them will work, and you can check that what the power limits are, what's been pushed by the motherboard. So here, as you can see, we've got the CPU 13700K, and the PL1 power limit and PL2 power limit are 253 watts, which is what Intel has set for for them, and we're running Intel stock settings now. So if you go and try to run something like the Cinebench, you'll see that the multi-core performance is not going to go above 253 watts. As you can see here, we're pulling 253 watts. 252 watts, as you can see there. If you've got very good cooling for your PC, just leave them, you know, enhanced, and let's see what the motherboard does. But if you find it a bit too loud, or perhaps you need to limit a little bit of the cooler, or, you know, your cooling isn't as good, like even this one here, it's not particularly awesome, I'd probably limit those settings. Now, tip number 5, and this is my favorite one, and this works on all of the Gigabyte Z690 and Z790 motherboards. This is a little bit of a trick that not a lot of people know that you can do. We all know that the 14900K finally runs 6 GHz out of the box, but what if I told you that your 13700K, 13900K, even 14600K, perhaps sometimes, maybe, possibly, and 14700K can run 6 GHz on Gigabyte motherboards, especially this one. I've got a whole dedicated video of this on the channel available, but I'll just show you how to enable it, and basically your CPU can run 6 GHz. If you want to know how much is the difference and will it work, go check out the other video. Here we are in advanced mode, CPU upgrade, and we're gonna press instant 6 GHz, okay? Our power limits are still the same, but a single core power, or the speed now, can go up to 6 GHz. So we're just gonna press save, and we'll go back to BIOS and see if we can get 6 GHz on this 13700K. And voila, look at that. We've got hardware info open here, and you can see core clock speeds. We've gone max 5.998, so that is 6 GHz on these two cores. What is it? P-Core 5 and P-Core 4. They are the best cores for me, and they go to 5.9. As you can see, oh, actually 6 GHz. I'm gonna leave this open so we can check them a little bit later, because I believe it's gonna hit 6.0 as well, bang on. But now the last tip, and the last tip is updating your BIOS. Now, you might think, I don't want to update my BIOS, but there are a few things why you need to update your BIOS, or why you want to update your BIOS, especially if you're going with a new CPU, or if you get new RAM, or you want your RAM to be a bit more stable. Perhaps maybe your current RAM profile is actually getting a bit more crashes or something like that. Updating the BIOS can fix that, or have a little bit more stable settings and things like that in there. How do you even go about updating your BIOS? Now, all you have to do is go to Google and search your motherboard's name, so the motherboard you have. I've got Gigabyte Z690 Aero D, and here is our motherboard page. In here, or in any of the other motherboard manufacturers as well, locate a support tab where we can find something, and underneath here there might be some CPU manuals and QVL list, memory support list here, for example. All we want to do is find BIOS. On Gigabyte, you have to scroll down a little bit, and there's BIOS in here. And we scroll back up, and you can see that underneath this BIOS menu, we've got different versions of BIOS. And here's the latest version of the BIOS, which is F28. And all you have to do now is just download this. Hit download, and it's just going to go into your download folder. You can see here I've already downloaded it. All you have to do is extract all, and then it will extract it in here. And once you've got this open, motherboard BIOS Z690 Aero D, as you can see here, there's only one file that we really need, which is this one here, this F28 file, or